The doctors of her day called the black woman's supper poor folks' food, fit for people who knew no better. Today, that same bowl of beans and greens sells at the health cafe for $16, and they call it a superfood. She never owned a scale. She ate what was on that plate and stayed slim her whole life long, and the science is only now catching up to what she already knew. Tonight, we count down 16 foods black women ate every day that kept them thinner than almost anything sold today. Number 1 is the one that surprises people the most. Stay with me. Number 16, the field peas she shelled every evening, the food the experts swore was beneath her. In Bronzeville, the older black woman sat on the step and split purple hull peas with her thumb. The doctors of her day called them poor folks' food, a thing you ate only because you could afford no better. They were wrong, and not by a little. A field pea carries protein and fiber in the same small skin, the two things that hold hunger off the longest. A bowl of them filled her for hours with no want for anything heavy after. That pea crossed the ocean from West Africa long before she was born. The health stores sell that same protein now in a plastic tub for $40. She grew hers in the yard for the price of a seed. They called it poor. It was the richest thing on her plate. Number 15, the okra she dropped in the pot, the one outsiders called too slimy to eat. On Auburn Avenue in Atlanta, the African-American grandmother cut fresh okra and slid it into the pot to thicken the greens. Folks who did not grow up with it wrinkled their noses and called it slimy and low. They missed what it did. Okra is built almost entirely of a soft fiber that soaks up water and slows the whole meal down inside you, so the fullness lasts far longer, and it steadies the blood sugar so there is no sharp drop an hour later. The wellness shops bottle that same fiber now and sell it for $30 a jar. The seed came from Africa, the same as her people. What they called low fed her better than anything on a shelf. Quick pause, one breath only. If you love videos like this one, make sure you are subscribed to this channel. It costs nothing and it means everything. Thank you kindly. Now, back to the countdown. Number 14, she ate something sweet every single day, and it kept her thin rather than heavy. In Sweet Auburn, Atlanta, the African-American grandmother baked a whole sweet potato until the skin went dark and ate it with the skin still on. The diet columns of the day warned that anything that sweet would settle on her hips. But here is what she understood. The skin holds most of the fiber, and that fiber fills you slowly and curbs the craving for cake afterward. The sweetness satisfied her with no added sugar at all. The juice bars now whip sweet potato into bowls, charging $12 and giving it a clever name. Hers was the potato and the oven, nothing else. The thing they said would make her heavy kept her from reaching for dessert. Number 13, the bitter greens she ate first, the sharp ones the table told her to sweeten. On the south side of Chicago, the older black woman cooked a pot of sharp mustard and turnip greens and ate them hot at the start of the meal. People reached for sugar to kill the bite and told her to do the same. She would not. A bitter taste wakes the stomach and starts the juices that break a meal down, so everything after sat easier and filled her faster. The health stores sell that exact idea now in brown bottles called digestive bitters, $25 for a few ounces. Hers grew in the garden for the price of a seed. The sharpness everyone ran from was working for her. She ate it on purpose. Number 12, the pepper sauce on the table that did more than burn the tongue. On Beale Street in Memphis, the black mother kept a bottle of homemade pepper sauce within reach and shook it over nearly everything. The magazines of the day called heavy spice a peasant habit, something a refined table left behind. But a hot pepper nudges the body to run a touch warmer after a meal, and it made a plain plate of peas and greens taste rich enough that she never wanted a second helping. The supplement aisle sells cayenne capsules now for $30 a bottle. Hers cost a handful of peppers off the vine. The fire did the work a second plate would have done. The women of Bronzeville and Beale Street never owned a scale between them. The food cost pennies, a dime of greens, a sack of dried peas, and the wellness industry today is worth over $60 billion a year. $60 billion. Powders, programs, and bowls of the very same food these Black women cooked, now with a clever name on the label. They were not missing a thing. Everything the world is rediscovering today was already on her stove. Simple and cheap, doing its quiet work. Number 11. The soured milk she drank, the kind they told her to pour down the drain. On Lenox Avenue in Harlem, the Black mother let fresh milk sit and clabber until it turned thick and tart. The neighbors called it spoiled and told her to throw it out. She knew better. Most of the fat had gone with the butter, so what was left was protein and the living cultures, and a glass sat heavy and quieted the late hunger that sends most people to the cupboard at night. The health shops sell that exact soured milk now as kefir, $6 a bottle. She made hers from milk about to turn, for nothing. What they called spoiled was working in her favor. Number 10. The peanuts she cracked by the handful, the snack they called fit only for the poor. On Lenox Avenue in Harlem, the older Black woman roasted raw peanuts until the shells went brittle and kept them in a paper sack. The smart set called the groundnut a poor man's food beneath the proper pantry, but the little nut was working for her. A small handful of peanuts is dense with protein and good fat that satisfies fast and holds the hunger down, so a few killed the craving a candy would only have fed. The shops sell that protein now as bars at $1 a bite. The groundnut came up out of West Africa with her people. What they called a poor snack was one of the best things she ate. Number 9. The fried fish she ate every Friday kept her thinner than the people who gave up frying. In Trim, New Orleans, the older Black woman dredged fresh catfish in cornmeal and laid it in a shallow swipe of hot grease. The diet sheets of the day said fried anything would make her heavy and told her to give it up. They had it backwards. The fish underneath was lean, light protein, and a piece of it fills you and holds you far longer than heavier meat. So one fillet carried her clear to morning. The restaurants sell a lean catfish plate now for $18 and call it clean eating. Hers came out of the river and the same black skillet she had used for 20 years. The fish they warned her off of was keeping her full and slim. Number 8. The grocery sack of greens that cooked down to one small bowl. On Beale Street in Memphis, the African-American grandmother filled the biggest pot in the house with collard greens and watched a whole sack cook down to almost nothing. The magazines called a plate of plain greens poor and joyless. They missed it entirely. Greens are fiber and water, and a long list of what the body needs, and you could not eat enough to gain an ounce, so they filled the largest part of her plate and left no room for anything heavy. The wellness brands dried those same greens into a powder now for $40 a tub. Hers came from a dime sack. What they called joyless kept her full and slim. Number 7. The jar of chow-chow she put up in the fall and ate all winter. In the 4th Avenue district of Birmingham, the older Black woman chopped the last green tomatoes of the season and packed them in jars to sour slowly. Modern pantries called home canning a backward chore, best left behind. But the slow souring fills the jar with living cultures that settle the stomach, and a spoon of something sharp turned a plain plate into a different meal every night, so she never got bored enough to crave something rich. The shops sell that now as kimchi, $12 a jar. Hers cost only what the garden gave. What they called a backward chore was feeding her gut decades early. Number 6. The wild grapes and berries she picked off the vine, free for the taking. In the 4th Avenue district of Birmingham, the older black woman walked the fence line in late summer and filled her apron with muscadines and blackberries, warm from the sun. The grocers called store fruit proper, and wild fruit something only the poor would stoop for. They had it backwards. Whole fruit eaten skin and all is sweet, but the fiber slows the sugar, so it fed her without the spike a candy gives. The juice bars blend those same dark berries into antioxidant bowls, now for $14. Hers stained her apron purple and cost nothing. What the land gave for free fed her better than anything in a wrapper. Number 5. The butter beans. She set to soak overnight, that fed her slow and steady all day. On the south side of Chicago, the older black woman poured dried butter beans into water before bed and left them to swell overnight. The doctors of her day lumped it all together as poor folks' starch, but soaked and cooked slow. A butter bean turns into a starch. The body burns low and even, with no spike and no crash, so a bowl in the afternoon held her steady to supper. The grocers can those same beans now with a health claim and a markup. A handful of dried beans fed the whole table. What they dismissed as poor held her steady all day. The older black woman in the low country of Carolina is where this countdown ends, and number 1 is still waiting. It is the food the modern world warns you about more than almost any other, the last thing you would expect on a list like this. She ate a bowl of it nearly every day and stayed slim her entire life. Nobody believes it until they hear where it came from and why it worked. We are almost there, but first, the 2 that come before it. Number 4, the plate of peas and rice together that fed her fuller than either one alone. In the low country of Carolina, the older black woman cooked field peas and rice in one pot with a piece of smoked meat. They called it humble food, a thing for people with nothing better. But here was the quiet trick. Peas alone and rice alone each give the body only part of what it needs, but cooked together, they make a whole protein, the kind that satisfies as deep as meat for a fraction of the cost, and a plate of it held her for hours. The health cafes sell a peas and grain bowl now for $16 and call it a complete protein bowl. Hers came straight from West Africa, cooked the way her people always had. What they called humble was the richest bargain on the table. Number 3, the parts of the hog no one else would touch, that she turned into the richest pot on the street. In Trine, New Orleans, the African-American grandmother cooked the cuts the market would not even sell today. Neck bones in the greens, pig feet in the pot, tough, lean pieces with hardly any meat on the bone. The fine kitchens called it the worst of the animal, fit only for those who got nothing else. But there was the genius in it. These lean scraps flavored a giant pot of beans and greens, while the vegetables did the filling. So a few cents of bone fed 8 people on a mountain of greens and almost no meat at all. The wellness world sells the broth from those same bones now for $9 a cup and calls it healing. She was handed the parts everyone threw out, and she made them the most nourishing pot in the neighborhood. That was not poverty. That was genius. Number 2, the little seed her people carried from Africa that she scattered on everything and never knew kept her thin. On the sea islands, off Carolina, the older black woman grew Benne, the seed the rest of the world calls sesame. It came across the ocean with her people, some say braided into their hair before the crossing, and they planted it in the new ground and never let it go. The grocers called the little seed poor folks' garnish, beneath a notice. But that little seed was a quiet powerhouse. A spoon of those seeds is dense with protein, good fat, and fiber all at once. The three things that fill a body and hold the hunger down. A sprinkle made a plain plate satisfy for hours. The health stores sell that same seed now ground into tahini at a premium. She toasted hers in a dry pan for nothing. The seed that survived the ocean was feeding her 200 years later, and they never once gave it the credit. Number 1. The white rice. The whole modern world tells you to fear that she ate by the bowl every day and stayed slim her entire life. In the low country of Carolina, the older black woman cooked a pot of rice nearly every day she lived. White rice, the one food on nearly every modern list of what not to eat, the last thing you would expect to keep anyone slim. And she ate a bowl of it daily from her wedding day to her last, and never once grew heavy. Here is the part nobody tells you. She rarely ate it hot and fresh. She cooked a big pot, ate some, and let the rest cool to warm the next day. Because you do not throw away good rice. And rice that has cooled changes inside the grain. The starch firms into a form the body cannot fully take in, so a bowl of cooled rice feeds you with far less than a hot bowl does. The scientists gave it a name only lately and study it now like something new. She was not studying anything, and the rice itself was no accident. The knowledge that grew it crossed the ocean in the minds of her people, who knew how to flood the fields and bring in a harvest that built a fortune in Carolina. The food the modern world fears most was the food her hands had grown for 200 years, and it kept her slim because she never let a grain go to waste. In the low country kitchen, the older black woman covered the last of the rice and set the bowl in the cool of the pantry for tomorrow. She hung the black skillet back on its nail. It was the same pan her mother had used. On that stove sat the pot of peas, the bowl of greens, the sack of rice her people had grown for 200 years. Every one of these foods is being rediscovered today, written up and sold as something new. She had it all along. The food that kept her slim for 90 years was that simple plate of greens and beans and rice from the garden out back, fresh and whole and cooked by her own hands. She was never poor in what she knew. She was rich in it, and she fed it to everyone she loved. She never called it a diet. She just called it supper, and she stayed slim her whole life long, eating the food that came from her own kitchen and her own ground. It's below. I read every single one of them. If this brought back her kitchen, her table, or her hands, take one moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It means more than you know. Until the next one.